South Africa was thrown into a state of unprecedented shock on Friday evening after the High Court issued a dramatic and historic order directly targeting President Ramaphosa, threatening him with imprisonment if he did not step down voluntarily. The announcement, which emerged late in the day, sent immediate shock waves throughout the nation and through the African National Congress, ANC, into turmoil, with sources reporting that many party members were visibly overwhelmed and even reduced to tears at the prospect of what could mark the end of an era. Before we continue, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. The legal action against President Ramaphosa followed months of intensive investigation into allegations that he had violated national laws, including accusations of misuse of state resources and other abuses of office. In a statement released from the president's office, officials emphasized that no individual, regardless of position, is above the law. The office of the president is not protected from prosecution, the statement read, underscoring the severity of the court's directive. The statement also clarified that failure by President Ramaphosa to comply with the court's order would result in serious consequences, including the possibility of incarceration. The court's decision has shaken the very foundation of the ANC, with internal sources indicating that the party experienced a profound sense of shock during a parliament session that extended deep into Friday night. Reports suggest that opposition researcher Sam May had compiled a detailed dossier of allegations against President Ramaphosa, highlighting multiple breaches of constitutional law and other alleged crimes. May, in addressing the nation, remarked on the stark contrast between Ramaphosa's initial promises upon assuming office and the state of decay that critics now claim defines his leadership. We have worked very hard to establish this nation since 1994. Allegedly, Sam Ramaphosa took over with a promise to reform this failing state. Now he is the very definition of our decay, May said. He further emphasized that South Africa, a state founded on principles of freedom, justice, equality, and democracy, is being undermined by politicized law enforcement, systemic corruption, and the capture of state institutions. Yet May also sought to soften the impact of the court ruling by suggesting that President Ramaphosa could preserve his dignity if he chose to step down willingly. The parliamentary response to the court ruling was highly dramatic, with many legislators visibly shaken by the proceedings that continued late into the evening. As soon as the judgment was announced, opposition parties erupted in applause, celebrating what they viewed as a historic moment for accountability and the rule of law. ANC members, in contrast, appeared stunned, struggling to process the implications of the court's decision. Julius Malema, leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters, capitalized on the moment, addressing Parliament with a statement that resonated with much of the public discourse. This is exactly what we have all along been saying. The president is not above the law. Justice has finally caught up with him. Let him face the consequences just like any other citizen, Malema declared, framing the ruling as a long overdue assertion of legal equality. Simultaneously, John Steenhuisen, leader of the Democratic Alliance (DA), called for the immediate resignation of President Ramaphosa, framing the court order as a victory for both democracy and the law. If a president believes in the Constitution, which they claim to represent, they must step down immediately, Steenhuisen proclaimed during an impromptu press conference, underscoring the urgent need for lawful compliance. Legal experts and constitutional scholars have widely regarded the court's ruling as a landmark moment in South African democracy. Legal practitioner Den Dion Kosi explained that it marks the first instance in the country's democratic history in which a sitting head of state has been directly threatened with imprisonment for disobeying a court order. He further noted that this judgment could have profound and long-lasting effects on governance, setting a precedent for accountability at the highest levels of political office. The public reaction has been intense, particularly in Pretoria, where large crowds gathered outside the union buildings, holding placards calling for the president to step down with slogans such as "No one is above the law," and "It's step down now." Social media mirrored the growing unrest, with citizens across cities like Cape Town, Johannesburg, and Durban sharing their frustrations through hashtags such as Ramaphosa step down and increases, reflecting a highly divided public sentiment. While some citizens expressed cautious support for the president, others were adamant that legal compliance was non-negotiable, highlighting the complex interplay between legal, political, and social dynamics in this crisis. Amid this political turmoil, there are concerns about the broader impact on the nation's stability. Analysts warn that the potential resignation of President Ramaphosa, or any attempt to resist the court's order, could exacerbate an already fragile economic situation. One citizen, reflecting a sense of personal connection to the political developments, expressed hope that the president's previous initiatives might continue even amid the upheaval. Yet there is a prevailing sense of foreboding, with commentators noting that the crisis represents a significant departure from the usual political norms, effectively plunging the country into uncharted constitutional territory. Reliable sources indicate that President Ramaphosa now has less than 7 working days to comply with the court's order. Failure to do so would constitute criminal contempt, potentially prompting action by law enforcement or the National Prosecuting Authority (NPA), a scenario unprecedented in South Africa's democratic history. Reports suggest that the president's inner circle is working under high pressure to formulate a public response, with speculation rife about his intentions. Some sources claim that Ramaphosa feels both betrayed and cornered by the judicial intervention, while others indicate he remains determined to challenge the ruling in the Constitutional Court. This uncertainty has intensified tensions within the ANC, with younger members, often referred to as the party's Young Turks, calling for a new era of accountability and governance reform. These internal divisions are said to be approaching a tipping point, raising fears of an outright split within the ruling party. Supporters of President Ramaphosa, however, argue that the court order is politically motivated, designed to weaken his leadership and erode public confidence in his administration. This internal tug-of-war has added to the sense of instability, leaving both the ANC and the country at a precarious juncture. The court's directive has therefore not only targeted the individual in the presidency, but also exposed deep fissures within South African governance and political culture. The ANC, which has long relied on its internal cohesion and historical legitimacy, now faces a potential implosion, with the looming possibility of rebellion among factions dissatisfied with the party's leadership. For the nation at large, the unfolding events represent a profound test of democratic institutions, legal enforcement, and the balance of power between branches of government. Citizens, political analysts, and international observers alike are watching closely to see whether President Ramaphosa will act honorably by stepping down and preserving his personal legacy, or whether the country will witness a confrontation that could reshape the political landscape. As the nation heads into an uncertain future, the questions remain stark and unresolved. Will President Ramaphosa comply with the court's order, preserving his dignity while averting legal consequences? Will the ANC rally behind him to maintain party cohesion? Or will internal divisions fracture the party irreparably? Could this crisis ultimately serve as a turning point, enabling a new era of accountability, legal rigor, and political transparency in South Africa? With emotions running high in both the corridors of power and the streets, one thing is clear. South Africa is experiencing a moment unlike any in its post-apartheid history. Never before has a sitting president faced such direct and unambiguous challenges from the judiciary. As dawn approaches in this tense and troubled nation, South Africans are left to confront a new reality where legal accountability, political loyalty, and public expectations collide in ways that could redefine the future of the presidency and potentially the trajectory of the nation itself. The events of this night have underscored both the fragility and resilience of South Africa's democratic institutions, demonstrating that no individual, no matter their office, is beyond the reach of the law, and that the demands of justice may at last transcend political allegiances and historical privilege. If you found this valuable, join our community and subscribe.